we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this beautiful Wednesday. Parnell Saint-Preux will be joining us in about 30 minutes. Good friend of mine, host of the Sports PSP Podcast, and a big-time Washington Commanders fan. You know he's going to have a lot to say in about 30 minutes from now regarding Jayden Daniels and the Commanders. Very impressive win on the road against the Bengals. Speaking of those Bengals, I'll get to them in about 15 minutes. Why they're not dead. Boy, they're on life support, but they've got a shot, and I'll explain why. In about 15 minutes, I will eat my crow on Trevor Lawrence in 10 to 12 minutes, and I am not looking forward to it, but this is an objective show. This is a show that keeps it real, that has some sense of honor and decency. And I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy. He hasn't been very good so far through the first part of the season. I'll get to that in 12 minutes. I'm not looking forward to it. After Parnell carving up the context, Matt Sluka, the quarterback of UNLV, stepped away from the program, quit the program because of an NIL issue regarding him not getting paid money that he was promised by UNLV. Get to that in about 45 minutes. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned for my take on that. Bryson's best 10, my top 10 teams in the National Football League going into week 4. Some teams getting back into the top 10 after not being there since week 1. Some teams that are still in despite a losing record. Some teams that, dare I say, are making their very first appearance on Bryce's Best 10. You're going to want to stay tuned for all that at the end of today's show. Predictions for Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Thursday Night Football tomorrow night with a special little carving it up twist, if you will. Stay tuned for that at the top of the next hour. Looks like we've already got some comments up in here. Patrick Brown, shout out to my man. He wrote a great article on Bryce Young. It's called Patrick's Great with Wordplay. The Bryce Isn't Right, which is available on the Grid Network's website. Check that stuff out. Another Grid Network member and a good friend of mine as well, Ryan Flowers, College Sports Talk. Check it out every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. He says, Lawrence sucks. He said, give me my money in cash. Well, if nothing else, and I'll get to Trevor, he's set for life. So he's good, right? He's chilling. If the Jaguars go 0-17, Trevor's good. He's going home to the bank a happy man. There's no question about that. We'll get to him a little bit later. But first, so it was so funny with the Buffalo Bills coming into this season, where you trade Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans after, of course, another disappointing playoff exit at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. You move on from guys, what's the kid's name? Micah Hyde. Other guys that are, obviously not with the Buffalo Bills roster in terms of their defense, losing some defensive pieces. Von Miller's getting up there in age, and we have some concerns about Josh Allen. He's got a turnover problem. Is Joe Brady going to be able to replicate what he did last year? And bam, 3-0 and look unstoppable, right? They eke out a close win against the Cardinals, who are a frisky team. Marvin Harrison Jr. did virtually nothing that day, and the Cardinals almost beat Buffalo in Buffalo. Then what they do, they go on the road in a short week to Miami, and that's obviously the Tua gets concussed game, but Tua got concussed when the Buffalo Bills were up 3 touchdowns. The game was out of reach at that point. Going to a team that made the playoffs last year, division rival, those 10 games tend to be close, and smoked them. And then last night, against a desperate 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguars team, at home in Buffalo, Josh Allen is nothing short of spectacular against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll show you how this sort of start the S parallels to what he's done in years past. Josh Allen, though, against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football, okay? 23 of 30, 263 passing yards. He had 44 rushing yards, by the way. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 touchdowns through the air. He had a pass rating of 142, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 98. Can't do a whole heck of a lot better than that if you're Josh Allen. But here's what I kept thinking when I was watching the Buffalo Bills, because this is a team that, despite some of the hesitancy to believe in them in this season by a lot of prognosticators and otherwise for this 2024 NFL season, I thought this was not only a playoff team, I thought this team was going to win the AFC East for reasons that I'm about to detail. And the numbers sort of show what I'm talking about here. So Buffalo being 3-0, you hear a lot of folks saying, well, I mean, they always get off to a hot start, be it 3-0, 3-1, 2, whatever the case may be. Buffalo gets out the gates, and they're flying. They oftentimes, once we get to the end of September, once we're going into week 5, a lot of folks are like, hey, Bills, best team in the NFL. And you could certainly make that case as we sit here today right now. But that's not what I want to talk about because that's common. We can show you what Josh Allen has done in weeks 1 to 3, going back to the 2020 season. So this is a 5-season sample size, so pretty big. What Josh Allen has done from 20 to 23 in weeks 1 through 3, and what he's done the first 3 weeks this year. We can go ahead and show you those numbers. All stats provided by StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Josh Allen, 298 yards passing in weeks 1 through 3 from 2020 to 2023. About 7.7 pass touchdowns through the first 3 games, about 2 picks, 69.5 completion percentage, and a pass rating of 105. Compare that to 2024. Okay? Weeks 1 through 3 from 20 to 23, Josh Allen, 298 passing yards. This year, only 211, down precipitously from the last 4 seasons prior to this one. 7.7 passing touchdowns on average at this point in the season. He's got about 7, slightly down. But notice this. In the quote-unquote efficiency stats, interceptions, Josh has 0. Completion percentage, he tends to get out the gates with a 69% completion. He's got a 75% completion percentage through the first part of this year. And the pass rating was very, very good. Matter of fact, excellent through the first few games, the last few seasons for Josh at 105. It's now skyrocketed to 133. Now, why is that? It's the very reason I believe in the Buffalo Bills, because we know how great Josh Allen is. That goes without saying. He is no lower than third or fourth best quarterback in the NFL. We knew how great he was. This Bills defense is younger. It is, dare I say, somewhat more talented than the defenses in years past. Maybe it doesn't have the big names, but are they more technically sound than they've been in years past? Sure looks like it through the first 3 games. After that Arizona Cardinals, sort of hiccup, only giving up 20 points, not on average, only giving up 20 points in totality the last 2 games they played against the Dolphins and against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not only that, but part of the reason I believe in the Buffalo Bills is because I believe that they were going to shift to a style of offense that is more conducive to winning in today's NFL. Stephon Diggs, even today, would be the best receiver still in the Buffalo Bills. I don't think there's any question about that. Respect to Khalil Shakir, respect to these other guys, Diggs would be the best guy. But when you had, and Josh Allen has been, not subtle in some of the shots he's taken to Stephon Diggs. He had a quote after the game where he said, basically, it's nice to have a group of guys where we don't care about our stats. That is a dig at Diggs, if you will. Okay? But what you do now, I've often joked about this. I would take the Tennessee Titans receiving core over the Dallas Cowboys receiving core. That's the example I give. CeeDee Lamb is way better, respect to D-Hop, but way better than anybody in the Tennessee Titans. But virtually everybody in the Titans, Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd, are better than anybody Dallas has after Lamb. Having a number 1 receiver is great. You'd love to be in a situation where, when healthy, the LA Rams, right, got Cooper Kupp, they got Puka Nacua, 2 bona fide number 1 guys. But the reality is that's usually not the case. You'd like to have an A- at worst guy, A- B+ at worst number 1, and a bunch of B players after that, B wide receivers after that, dudes you could spread the ball around to. And that's what the Bills have. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman caught his first touchdown of his NFL career. Dalton Kincaid, who I loved out of Utah in a couple of drafts ago. You got Dawson Knox. You got, Josh still has weapons. And Josh has the best running game that he's ever had in his career with James Cook, who already has more touchdowns this year than he had a year ago. It's the best offensive line. How many times watching that game against the Jaguars, and listen, I get it. Jacksonville doesn't have a very good defense. I picked the Jags to go to the playoffs this year. I'll to a certain degree, take my medicine on Trevor in a few minutes. But that aside, Josh Allen had all day to throw Monday Night Football. Now, that's not necessarily always going to be the case, but even if it's not, Josh Allen's the best running quarterback in the NFL this side of Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels. He can move as well as anybody, right? Inside the pocket, outside the pocket. We know Josh can make the throws, but there's always a sense of Josh will always make. I've always said about Josh Allen, he's the ultimate WTF player. He will make a play that you're like, WTF, ain't no human in the world that can do what that guy just did. And then he'll make the WTF play. We're like, what the heck was this guy trying? There's no positive in the play. Hurdling a linebacker on 3rd and 11 when you're going to get tackled for short of a first down. That's Plays like that. But is there a chance, and I'm not saying this is the case, by the way, I want to be abundantly clear, because we only have 3 games of data. But is there a chance, with the support of his running game, with a wide receiving core where he does not have, feel pressured to force feed the ball to one guy, where he could spread the football around and be efficient, no interceptions, completion percentage at 75%, passer rating skyrocket, over 130. Is it possible? And obviously Joe Brady is the new OC who we knew, took over last year as the interim, that this might be a new Josh Allen. He'll make mistakes because they all make mistakes, of course. He'll probably throw double-digit interceptions because quarterbacks who take big risks, that's usually what they do. I mean, C.J. Stroud only throwing 4 last year was pretty incredible as a rookie. Let me ask you a question. You want to take a guess at which quarterback in the NFL has the longest active streak, going back to the playoffs, the longest active streak in the NFL without an interception? Josh Allen. 169 throws, 0 picks. Like that is, given his previous history, that I never thought in my life on this show. Yeah, I've said that about Aaron Rodgers. I've said that about Brady. I've said that about Dak and Mahomes, like guys who don't turn the football over. C.J. Stroud, like dudes who just don't throw interceptions. Josh hasn't turned the ball over because he's been more fishy. He's got support from his run game. The defense is still good. Sean McDermott, for some of his limitations as a head coach, he's great with the defense. Ask Carolina Panthers fans the year after he left. The defense went into the cellar there in Carolina. It hasn't really recovered since. So, listen, I'm not saying that the Buffalo Bills are, you're going to see Bryson's best 10 a little bit later in the show. Like, I'll give my rankings for all the teams in the NFL. But this today, we actually had this question last night in the 8 o'clock spot, which returned for season 2. Shout out to all the guys that did it. I think this is the biggest threat to Kansas City right now in the AFC. And we talk about, can Josh Allen, can the Bills finally get over the hump against the Chiefs? I don't know if they will. My leaning will say probably not, because I'm always going to bet on the dynasty, Mahomes and Andy Reid. This is their best chance to, though. We'll see. A lot of it's going to depend on who gets the home game. But then again, the closest Josh Allen came to beating Mahomes was at Arrowhead Stadium. So he's not scared of that environment. We know that. But again, it is at the very least on the board. And I'm not saying this is the case. I want to be abundantly clear that this might be a brand new Josh Allen. And if so, look the heck out for the Buffalo Bills. I could not believe coming into the season in the AFC, the discussion was, hey, the Dolphins with all their weapons, or the Jets with Rodgers coming back. I'm like, or the team that's won the division 4 years in a row with by far the best quarterback in the division and a brand new offensive philosophy with a brilliant offensive mind in Joe Brady. Buffalo's going to be scary. Now, they always get off to these hot starts, but this is a different way that they've gotten off to a hot start, and that is really important. Let's see what we got. EJ Savage, Boys in the Zone, also a member of the Grid Network, did a great show last night. Shout out to EJ. He says, Jacksonville is garbage. Doug Peterson is about to be the first head coach fired, with McCarthy following if the boys lose to the Giants. Well, listen, I'll get to that way later down the road on the show, predicting that game. So you think that's on the board? Mike McCarthy loses his job if the Cowboys lose to the Giants. Listen, you win 12 games 3 years in a row, 0 conference title games. I don't think that's ever happened in NFL history. And then you start 1-3 with a worsened roster. Listen, sure. Jerry Jones has done it before. He doesn't tend to do it. Fire coaches during season, but it's on the board. And I'll tell you what, for the Bills, this style of play is sustainable. That's the great thing too for the Bills. You can run the football. Like, this is translatable to whatever type of game you're playing. You can run the football. You can spread the ball around. Again, Josh is going to throw picks at some point. But as of right now, again, who'd have ever thought that Josh Allen would go 169 throws without a pick? I don't know. See if it continues. But if it does, consistently, yeah, watch out for Buffalo. Felt they were a contender coming into the season. It was weird that I was actually in the minority on that. I think folks have come to my side of the table now. The Bills are a very real football team. Now to the losing team. Well. So, longtime viewers and listeners of Carving Up Live, first of all, thank you. It means a lot. But y'all know I'm a big-time Trevor Lawrence fan. I've loved the guy since he was at Clemson, winning a national championship and lighting up Nick Saban's defense, the Alabama Crimson Tide in the 2019 CFP National Championship game. He was finishing in the Heisman every year and just torching college football. And he gets drafted number 1 by the Jacksonville Jaguars, has a disastrous rookie season, but I think any objective person, and we see then certainly, or we see now certainly saw, that was just a disaster with Urban Meyer. And then in year 2 with Trevor Lawrence, he got off to a little bit of a rocky start as well. And it's like, oh, where's that guy who was dealing at Clemson? And then the second half of the season, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags proceed to go from a 4-8 team, if I remember correctly, to being a division champion and winning a playoff game after 1 point trailing 27-0. And Trevor Lawrence in the second half of the season, according to Pro Football Focus, was the 3rd highest graded quarterback in the league behind Mahomes and Burrow. And then last year, the Jags, entering week 13 rather, were the number 1 seed in a crowded AFC. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. They go on a losing streak, miss the playoffs. So on the Trevor side of it, here's where we got to be objective and show you the cold, hard facts. In his last 8 games, Trevor Lawrence has thrown for 228 pass yards per game. Not terrible, but nothing to go crazy about. 12 total touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That ain't good. He's not even completing 60% of his throws, 59.7. His passer rating might as well be smack dab at average at 79.7, and he has a record of 0-8. I often talk about how Aaron Rodgers has not thrown for 300 yards since the 2021 season. Well, Trevor Lawrence, by the math, has not won a football game since a few days after Thanksgiving last year. That's the last time that Trevor Lawrence was a quarterback of a winning football team with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Get to the Jags problem in about a minute and a half. Here's what I'll say. Throughout the course of that game, when Trevor was utterly abysmal, he threw obviously the interception to Damar Hamlin. First of all, thank God, what a cool moment for Damar Hamlin. His first interception of his career after all that he's been through. I was watching that play and I was like, what the heck is Trevor doing? The other side of me was like, oh, this is just awesome. Getting his first pick, doing it in Buffalo. It's a great moment for Damar Hamlin. God bless that man. He's been through everything. Shout out to him. But when Trevor was throwing picks, and there were points in the game, and Phil will tell you this, where it looked like, remember when Sam Darnold on Monday Night Football said, I'm seeing ghosts against the Patriots? It looked like Trevor Lawrence was literally seeing ghosts. Like he was avoiding a pass rush that did not exist because of his insecurity in the pocket, be it from Von Miller or being it from Buffalo's other pass rushers. Like he was, okay, what am I doing in the pocket? What am I supposed, I am lost out here. But Sam Darnold, who was not nearly as good in his first stop as Trevor was in his first and to this point only stop. Do you see what Sam Darnold is doing right now with a good roster, a brilliant coach? By the way, brilliant coach on both sides of the ball. What Brian Flores is doing with the Vikings defense, unbelievable. Where you go matters. Look what Justin Fields is doing in a more stable organization with my Steelers. You can look over. Malik Willis didn't look like he belonged on an NFL field a year ago. I watched him live in person in Nashville against the Titans, against a good defense, by the way. Oh my God, he looked awesome. Matt LaFleur. So I am willing today to sell my stock on Doug Peterson. It fizzled out in Philly. It looks to be fizzling out in Jacksonville. But I will not sell my stock on Trevor Lawrence. And anybody's saying, oh, we need to bench Trevor Lawrence for Mac Jones. Mac Jones, the answer. Did you see him? Even in garbage time, dude's still fumbling. Dude's still awful. Okay? Same draft class. I loved Lawrence. Did not like Mac at all. I've been proven undeniably correct on one, and the other, TBD. Not great so far. So I'm still willing to keep my Trevor Lawrence stock because that guy who was the third highest graded quarterback in the second half of the 2022 season, according to Pro Football Focus, who beat Justin Herbert in a playoff game, that guy's still there. I know he's still there. I just don't know if it's going to materialize in Jacksonville. The problem is he signed a long-term extension there. To Jacksonville, though, and what I really wanted to get into, because this is not the Jaguars being 0-8 in Trevor Lawrence's last 8 starts. That's not the main story. Because the Jaguars going in this poor stretch, it's not just a Trevor Lawrence problem. It's not just a Doug Peterson problem, an offensive line problem, maybe to a certain degree a lack of weapons problem, a defense problem. It's none of those things. We actually have footage of this. The issue with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Roll that beautiful bean footage. It happened in week 8 of last season when a kid, wind guard for the Jacksonville Jaguars, dared to disrespect the terrible towel and the greatness that comes with that in the city of Pittsburgh. Decided to steal it from the fan, and a convoy of Jaguars defenders decided to do the same thing. We're going to steal some Pittsburgh Steelers terrible towels. We're going to wave in an Acrisure Stadium and disrespect the team that we are in the process of handing an L to. But here's what I can tell you, folks. You don't disrespect that towel, because since that moment, the Pittsburgh Steelers, my Pittsburgh Steelers, are 9-5, and the Jaguars, folks, are back to being in the drubs of the NFL with a 3-9 record. I'm just saying, when you do certain things, when you disrespect certain honored traditions by all-time great legendary franchises which the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously are, that's what you get. So Jacksonville, hold this L. You don't deserve Trevor Lawrence. I'll tell you that much. How dare they wave that terrible towel? Unbelievable. Patrick Brown. He does not like Trevor Lawrence. I've been waiting for this. Tiki Sunshine Lawrence is not the quarterback everyone hyped up. He got paid for what he did prior to being drafted. And Patrick says, I've got a little rhyme for you. Oh, God. Old McCorkle had a field. E-I-E-I-O. And on that field, he had a miss. E-I-E-I-know. With a miss here and a miss there. Throw a pick here and everywhere. Old McCorkle can't throw a ball. Well, we do agree on that, Patrick. Mac Jones is not very good. He's not very good at all. We'll get to Parnell in about 7 minutes to talk Washington Commanders, but there was a second game, obviously, far more entertaining. Cincinnati Bengals, Washington Commanders. From Cincinnati, Bengals, just like the Jaguars, desperate 0-2 team. Unlike the Jaguars, this is a team that with a healthy Joe Burrow has Super Bowl aspirations. I obviously got there a few seasons ago. The year after that, came oh so close, losing to the Chiefs in the AFC title game. And last year, to a certain degree, y'all just kind of threw out because of the fact that Joe Burrow, of course, went down with the season-ending wrist injury against the Baltimore Ravens on a Thursday night. Oh, but the problem is this with the Bengals. Their defense is bad. It's ranked 26th overall in the National Football League. I'm still not willing to quite yet sell my stock on the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not willing to sell my stock on a team quarterbacked by a guy I strongly believe still is the second best quarterback in the game in Joe Burrow, who, by the way, I could not believe the post-game conversation from the Bengals side in terms of their offense, blaming Joe Burrow. Let's see. He didn't punt. Bengals didn't punt. He goes 29-38, 324 passing yards, not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns. QBR 0 to 100 of 73 and a pass rating of 127. By the way, Jamar Chase, 6 catches for $118 and 2 touchdowns. Joe Burrow did his job. By the way, the Bengals scored 33 points on a Washington defense that can be suspect. Joe Burrow did his job. He scored 33 points at home. You should win the football game. So anybody blaming Joe Burrow, y'all watch a different game than I did. I'm just going to say that right now. There's 2 reasons why I feel good about the Bengals. One is a kind of a future look just in terms of what they've got ahead of them, and one is in the here and now. The future look is because the fact that Cincinnati, an underrated story coming into this football season, it's why I, before the year started, picked the Bengals to win the AFC North, is because quietly, because they play in one of the best divisions in football, because of the injury to Joe Burrow and how they floundered down the stretch without him, all of a sudden, the Bengals, with a minimum top 3 quarterback, had a 4th-place schedule. And that's going to materialize in the next few weeks. They've got at Carolina. Yes, I get that's, Andy Dalton, Red Rifle. potential revenge game. The Bengals, despite being 0-3, are 3.5-point favorites on the road in Carolina. So they should win that game. Then they got a tough game against the Ravens, who they struggled badly against. But then they play the Giants. They play the Browns. Philadelphia, okay, somewhat tough, but that game's at home. The Raiders, later in their schedule, they got some Titans, some Browns, some Broncos. A lot of winnable games down the stretch here for Cincinnati. And again, now a skeptic could say, well, then why didn't they beat the New England Patriots? And why didn't they beat the Washington Commanders? Washington's better than we thought. It's why I thought the Commanders were like an 8-win team that could potentially vie for a playoff spot. I really like where some of their pieces. And then New England is honest to God, I can only chalk that up to Cincinnati just doesn't come into the season ready, straight up. I mean, Joe Burrow's numbers between week 1 and week 2 in his career are abysmal. They don't win much. He has 1 win in his career between weeks 1 and week 2 in his career. So that's the long-term lookout for the Cincinnati Bengals. They can put themselves in position to where once we get to like week 14, they won't be in contention to win the AFC North. I don't think they can catch Pittsburgh, for that division spot right now. But they can be in the playoff mix with that guy quarterback healthy with Jamar Chase. You can be in the mix. Here's the long-term, rather the here and now. Look at the Bengals that could translate to long-term. I don't know if folks saw this, but it's really interesting. There was it looked like a TMZ video almost the way it was shot. Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor, and Lou Anarumo, quarterback, head coach, defensive coordinator, had a meeting almost immediately after the game. There's a video. We don't have it on the show here, but there's a video of all three walking to a little closed-off area in the bowels of the stadium to have a little conversation. Now, I have to imagine that it was Burrow who called this conversation because Burrow did his job. Scored 33 points, 3 touchdowns, passer rating in the 120s, no turnovers, no punts. He was great. Zach Taylor, game planning. Are we ready? 0-3 start. With this level of talent offensively, that shouldn't happen. And Lou Anarumo, who I've often praised as one of the best defensive coordinators in football, the Bengals defense is not good. They can't get pressure to the quarterback consistently other than Trey Hendrickson. They can't stop the run. They're not a good defense. They can't turn the ball over against other teams other than against the Kansas City Chiefs, evidently. So that to me, this feels like to me a Bengals team that is going to be trashed all week to a certain degree for a good reason by the national media. I could see a situation in which they come out against the Carolina Panthers, who's feeling good about themselves, good for them, and boat races them. I could absolutely see that scenario. I'm not saying I'm predicting it. Predictions, I say those for Friday shows. Not now. If they lose to Carolina, they're done. If they're 0-4, their season's over. Not quite willing to sell stock in the Bengals just quite yet. That's all I'll say. By the way, I still cannot get over that poem by Patrick. That was beautiful. Parnell is going to be joining us in a minute. This is Carving Up Live. We're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Joining us now is a good friend of mine. He is the host of the Sports PSP Podcast and a big-time Washington Commanders fan. Would you please give a warm welcome back to Carving Up Live to Parnell Saint-Preux, who is joining the show once again. Parnell, my man, how you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's great to have you back on the show. So, almost immediately after that game was over, at least once it got to the point where it was evident that your Commanders were going to win, I was like, listen, I got to get Parnell on the show. I got to get his thoughts on what's going on here. First and foremost, Have a day, Jayden Daniels. Let's go ahead and show his stats and what he did against the Bengals. 293 total yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Had the highest completion percentage by a rookie in NFL history with a minimum of 20 attempts. He completed 91% of his throws, passer rating of 141, QBR of 93, 0 to 100. Take on Jayden Daniels and what you saw from him the other night against the Cincinnati Bengals and what he did.
Bryson, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I didn't even watch the game because I was afraid that the Bengals were just going to beat us up. But once I saw the scoreboard and once I looked at the highlights of Jayden Daniels, I was just amazed. Especially the throw he threw to Terry McLaurin to seal the deal. Um, you know, prior to the draft, I was skeptical of Jayden Daniels because of his size. That was the one concern that I had. I actually was leaning towards having Drake May on my team, but I'm glad that I'm proven wrong. Jayden Daniels, since he's been with the team, it's been great. As far as Washington collectively, it was a great win. I still have concerns about the defensive part. We gave up a ton of points. No shame against the Bengals. Ironically, week 2, we won that game against the Giants, but we only settled for field goals in that game, kind of like how your Steelers settled in that game against Atlanta.
Sure.
But I'm just very happy, very excited on what I'm seeing from Jayden Daniels, and this is just the potential. He's only scratched the surface, and imagine how great he can be with Washington, hopefully with an offensive line, because with an offensive line to help him out as well, oh, sky's the limit for him and Washington.
Sky is the limit. And you mentioned that throw to Terry McLaurin. We actually do have a clip of that. I mean, this is, other than the Anthony Richardson throw against the Texans in week 1, this might be the throw of the NFL season thus far, with a guy coming in his face, unblocked, to throw, again, essentially off his back foot,
Absolutely.
a perfect ball to McLaurin in the back of the end zone, which basically sealed the deal for your Commanders to get the W. So, you mentioned that game against the Giants last week. It's one of the craziest stats of the year. The Giants somehow managed to lose a game in which you guys score 0 touchdowns, they score 3. It's pretty incredible. And again, it's kudos to Washington's ability to move the football. Thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury? So we know he obviously was the head coach of Texas Tech, then the Arizona Cardinals, was very famous for coming out the gates, flying, and then, just completely floundering at the end of the season. Thoughts on what he's doing as the offensive coordinator now with Jayden Daniels, and is this going to be a situation where it flames out like it has in years past, or is this something where Jayden Daniels is going to progressively, it's hard to improve much off that last performance because that was incredible, but progressively gets better as an overall quarterback? What do you think Cliff Kingsbury's sort of input onto that is?
Well, I think so far right now with the offense, you're seeing the potential, what it can be, and Jayden Daniels, a dual threat quarterback with Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury, you look at his history. I mean, he had Caleb Williams before he was the offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. He was the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. Of course, he worked with Kyler Murray. And, Texas Tech, a lot of quarterbacks. My guy, Baker Mayfield, he worked with before he went to Oklahoma. Patrick Mahomes, of course, he worked with Johnny Manziel during his time at Texas A&M, the year in which Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy in 2012 as a redshirt freshman. So Cliff Kingsbury with his offense helps. I just like the fact that he's incorporating more of Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. Unfortunately for Austin Eckler, he's injured with the concussion. So I hope for an opportunity for Brian Robinson Jr. and whoever's left with our running backs. But I love what I'm seeing with the offense. And like I said before, this is without an offensive line. Imagine once we have an offensive line, hopefully by free agency and the draft. But I love what he's doing. He definitely belongs in the NFL as an offensive guy. I do believe he could be a head coach again in the NFL because, again,
Really?
he knows offense. He knows how to work with quarterbacks. And if he can actually do some things with Jayden Daniels, he will have a better chance. I mean, why not? You were the head coach before. He may have another opportunity to become one again. So
I have my skepticism in that regard just because we've seen guys who are more suited to be OCs than head coaches. I mean, I think Arthur Smith of my Steelers is, excuse me, as a prime example, was not good in Atlanta, but you saw what he did in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, what he's doing now with Justin Fields. I tend to think that guys like that sort of fall in that category. I don't know if he's necessarily head coach material, Cliff Kingsbury, but, we'll see as time goes on. And to your point, I actually talked to you about this not that long ago. With the offensive line concerns, that I don't think it would be as much of an issue, at least in the here and now, for Jayden Daniels because of his mobility, what he can do with his legs. But like you said, once he does get that O-line, he's got a chance to be really special. Dan Quinn, clearly the Dallas Cowboys miss him. They are far and away the worst rush defense in football. I see that just brings a smile to your face as the division rival of the Cowboys. Thoughts on Dan Quinn? Again, he's a defensive specialist. We know his history with the Legion of Boom back in Seattle. Is right now, is it a coaching problem? Is it a personnel problem? Because thus far, we know Dan Quinn knows how to work with the front office, build a staff. Thoughts on his sort of contributions thus far in this 2-1 start for Washington?
I think it's more personnel. I mean,
Okay.
First of all, last year, you look at Washington, we had the worst passing defense and the worst scoring defense last year in the NFL. Remember the Thursday night football game last year in which Justin Fields torched my Commanders that day. But look, I think he's just doing a good job. I did like the fact that he brought in Bobby Wagner, obviously because of the Seattle days. Having a guy like Bobby Wagner, veteran guy, bringing some leadership, helping out the team, I think that can work. Our defense, though, that's a concern. I mean, I have concerns about the secondary. Of course, we got rid of our two best pass rushers last year in a trade, Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I had no problem with the Chase Young trade because Washington didn't pick up his fifth-year option. And if he had a great year, then okay, we're going to have to pay him. And we didn't want to make the same mistake, kind of like how the Giants did with Daniel Jones. He didn't pick up his fifth-year option. He had an improvement year in 2022. And guess what? You're paying him $40 million. Montez, I wanted to keep Montez, but he ended up getting traded to Chicago. Chicago eventually took care of him and his money. Wish Montez nothing but the best. So we got to address that area as far as the pass rushers, and we got to improve our secondary. I really wanted Christian Gonzalez out of the draft, out of Oregon, instead of Emmanuel Forbes, because he has the speed, but also, unlike Emmanuel Forbes, he has the size and physicality. So having him there in Washington would have helped, especially when you're going up against wide receivers like A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, now Malik Neighbors. So, but time will only tell. Remember, it's still year 2 under the new ownership with Magic Johnson and the owner for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's going to take me some time in order for me to figure out, okay, what exactly are they trying to do? Because I still can't get over the old Dan Snyder days. I just can't.
Listen, I think almost by default, they will be better than Dan Snyder. So any PTSD you might have, and I understand from what was the worst ownership group in professional football for a very long time, I think that's out the window. Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, I think they're going to sure things up in that regard. So listen, NFC East is a weird division, man. I mean, I feel like every team in that division for different reasons has a big question. The Giants, it's just their roster simply isn't that good. And Daniel Jones, we know his limitations. I do like Dable and Malik Neighbors, as you mentioned that previous answer you gave, is a special player. Just don't think they're good enough yet.
Is.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas has great players in individual spots, but as a roster, they're not terribly deep. And we, of course, have questions about the coaching staff. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is a turnover problem. I don't buy Nick Sirianni or Kellen Moore. The defense any given day can be god-awful. Washington's young.
Saquon. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually have Saquon. He should be more in the conversation for the MVP. Because if it were not for his contributions, imagine what Philadelphia could be.
Listen, I think you can make a case if Saquon doesn't drop that pass and what I thought was an inexcusable call at the end of the Falcons game, he probably is the front runner for MVP with Darnold, Josh Allen, guys like that. But listen, Washington, of course, again, has their set of limitations as you detailed, offensive line, defense. Let's just forget NFC East. Can they make the playoffs? So, a scale of 1 to 10. How confident you think that they make the playoffs this year in the NFC?
Okay, I'm being totally honest. I would say around a 2.5 or 3.
Okay.
I have no chance in them getting to the playoffs. Could they win at least 6 or 7 games? Yes. But in order for that to happen, we're going to have more types of performances like that from Jayden Daniels, which he's capable of. He's clearly capable of having great performances, but also at times our defense has to help him out. I mean, I hate to have our young quarterback put up those types of numbers and still no help from our defense. So I'm at a 2 or a 3. But time can change because I look at Dallas. I've told you before the problem with Dallas. It's Jerry Jones.
Yes.
I've said it before and I will continuously say it. Cowboys fans, right after that loss against the Packers, are we going to hire Bill Belichick? Are we going to hire Jim Harbaugh? I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. You're going to keep Mike McCarthy because as long as Mike McCarthy does exactly what Jerry Jones says, nothing. You look at the Eagles. I had them winning the division this year, and I still do because when is it that a team in that division won it back-to-back years? And then when you look at the Giants and the Commanders, okay, the Giants, they did beat the Cleveland Browns, but let's be honest, Deshaun Watson, I'm afraid this is it for him, and I don't know what's going to happen. And when you look at the New York Giants, you saw what happened against the Vikings. You saw what happened against my Commanders, and they're going up against the Cowboys tomorrow night. Dallas should easily win that one, given how Dallas has defeated the New York Giants. Daniel Jones still, the last time Daniel Jones has beaten the Dallas Cowboys, that was the season finale during the COVID year, 2020. Since that time, it hasn't happened. So Dallas should win this one. And if you lose this one to the New York Giants,
oh my goodness,
imagine how worse it could be. No shame losing to the Baltimore Ravens, in my opinion, because Baltimore did what they were supposed to do, run the football. Lamar Jackson should not be throwing the ball 35, 40 times. Not when you have him and Derrick Henry running the football. You had over 200 yards rushing. Then in week 2 against the Saints, by the way, the Saints, they're actually more the sleeper team in the NFC. The question mark is with Derek Carr. I like what they do defensively, and they can run the football as well. And you saw that against the Dallas Cowboys in week 2. I think for me personally, Washington can finish 3rd in that division.
Okay.
I have Philadelphia 1. I have Dallas 2 because of Dak. If it were not for Dak Prescott, and I'm concerned with Dak for the next 4 years, Bryson, because we talked about this before. Dak, I thought he made a mistake taking that money. He should have entered free agency,
Parnell.
And I would like for him to go to Pittsburgh.
Oh, listen, I mean, I did all I could on the show to recruit him to Pittsburgh. So
I know you campaigned.
I campaigned. I listen. I had the terrible towel. I wore the Dak hat and the jersey and all that. I mean, I mean, if nothing else, Parnell, he does the here we go. I mean, what's the Steelers hashtag on social media? Here we go. It just would have made sense, but listen, Justin Fields is. He's been
playing very well.
Though. Yeah. No, for sure. Before we get out of here, Parnell, tell everybody where you can find your show.
Absolutely. Sports PSP Podcast. Please check it out every Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. New episode will be coming out. Just finished releasing the latest video, favorite T-Pain track. So we do sports, we do some music, we do some entertainment. We do a lot of discussions on the Sports PSP Pod, and very happy with all the great success that we're having. Already 19,000 subscribers.
Dang, here we go. Parnell is going to new heights right now. Sports PSP, Parnell Saint-Preux. Appreciate you joining my show, my man. Have a good one.
Anytime, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Parnell, check out his show, Sports PSP, on YouTube. Check him out on social media. He's all over the place. Does a great job. Has a great show. Great contributors he has on there as well. So shout out to him. All right. So we do it every single Wednesday, usually at 6:30, but because we had a guest, we put it off until 6:45. It's called Carving Up the Context. Basically, in this today's segment is just like gift wrapped for this segment. Essentially, what we do every Wednesday, there's a big story in the world of sports or otherwise, and there's surface value takes on. But what we try and do, here's what we do on Carving It Up, on Carving Up the Context, folks. We try and dig just a little bit deeper, carve a little bit more context, if you will, out of the segment. And in a college football season, which has as many headlines as I can possibly remember, We got a big one, and it just dropped today, and there's a chance it could get even bigger as time goes on. So, speaking of college football, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, prime time, Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about a guy you've probably never heard of because I've never said him on the show. His name is Matthew Sluka. He, was the quarterback of the of UNLV in the Mountain West Conference. So, big story in college football is today. So, UNLV, just to set the stage, 3-0 on the season. Okay, Sluka was having a pretty solid year. 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, so, great touchdown-interception ratio. Passer rating through the roof of 136. So Matt was playing really, really good football. And UNLV, by the way, in the latest coaches poll, AP coaches poll, was ranked 23rd, so in the top 25. A team that was kind of on the come up, having one of their best starts of the season that they've had in some time. My man Ryan Flowers, who lives in Vegas and has UNLV season tickets, could tell you that right there. But he decided to quit the program today because of the fact that there was an issue revolving around an NIL deal. And an article here by ESPN says that he left over an unfulfilled $100K offer from the school who promised him this NIL money. So this has been not this story individually, but the whole story of NIL. This has been something that I've talked about. I've been doing Carving It Up Live since October of 2019. I started talking about this very subject in November of that year. This is something that I am personally very passionate about. I think a lot of folks, maybe in my generation and even beyond that, are as well, is the fact that college athletes should get paid. Full stop. So I just want to set the stage. So Matthew Sluka is a quarterback. Let's just throw out an example. So let's say Justin Fields is going to be a free agent next year. He's quarterback for my Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's say he has a good season. Let's cross fingers the Steelers keep doing what we're doing offensively in terms of the improvement. Let's say Justin Fields is a free agent. Steelers didn't pick up a 5th-year option, and the Steelers or somebody else signs Justin Fields and promises him a contract and doesn't pay him. Folks, not only is that the biggest story in sports, it is the biggest story, one of the biggest stories in America. It probably leads the New York Times. It's on ESPN. It's on all the cable news networks. I mean, Justin Fields probably being brought in for primetime interviews on national news shows. It is a gigantic controversy. Well, Bryson, that's a professional athlete. It's a contract. Folks, college athletes might as well be professional athletes, and frankly, they kind of are. And they should be because they bring in millions upon millions. Listen, UNLV's no Alabama or Texas. We know that. But UNLV's still a Division I program in Las Vegas. Like, listen, they get the requisite amount of attention for where they're at in the landscape of college football. And you would think the quarterback who's leading them into the latest coaches poll, being in the top 25, playing really, really good football, would not get, keeping it real on the show, lied to by UNLV. So what this story shows to me, the context of it, is that we're very young in NIL. It's only been around about 3 years legally. Is that the stigma of name, image, and likeness, for reasons I cannot quite explain, or I guess I can the more I think about it, the stigma still remains. Take it back to 2021, summer of 2021. When in a country where, let's just say I'll be diplomatic and say we're split on many issues, the Supreme Court is a good representation of that. They agree on virtually nothing. They agree 9-0. 6 conservatives, 3 liberal justices agreed across the board unanimously. 9-0. Name, image, and likeness should be legal in college sports. The most conservative member of our current Supreme Court, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, said that the previous business model of college football would be illegal everywhere else. The Supreme Court is unanimous on this. Folks, again, I don't have to tell you, that never happens. And so it goes back to, I can remember politicians have talked about it. Joe Manchin has talked about it. Mitch McConnell has talked about it. People from the right, from the left, in between, in the middle, doesn't matter, seem to be very worked up about this. And I'm seeing takes today, and I cannot, my mind can't possibly wrap around this. The idea that, he quit, screwed his teammates over. That guy, not a team for. He was playing excellent football, and they were 3-0. It would be one thing. Still, I would be on the side of the player, but it'd be one thing if UNLV was 0-7, out of bowl contention, and then just middle of the season, I'm out. I'm transferring, or I'm leaving the school. Which, by the way, NCAA rules prohibit players from playing for two different schools in the same season. So Matt Sluka's 2024 season is done. It is over. This also goes to me to a conversation that I've talked about as NILs become a thing, is that just like any other form of a business in America, there does need to be some level of regulations. We're in a spot where UNLV is doing what they did with Matt Sluka, where that is illegal. Well, we're in a spot. By the way, I'm not so certain that it isn't illegal, that Matt Sluka isn't going to lawyer up, as they say, and take this as far as he can take it and get what he can get. Which, by the way, more power to him. God bless him. I hope he gets what he can. There's a lot of reasons why some folks are against NIL. Some of it really are, to a certain degree, as deep as, is it going to be a wild, wild west type of situation, as I talked about with the lack of regulations, which, again, I say there does need to be. There's folks that do feel that way, and I respect that, because as a guy who's fully in favor of NIL, I not only get that argument, I agree with a lot of it. But it goes back to certainly the NCAA, first and foremost, is the idea, amateur athletes, they're recruited, they come to the school, the full ride to this college, this institution, and get their education, and they're in the most physical and brutal sport that there is in this country, football, putting their bodies on the line every single play, while simultaneously making millions of dollars for their institution. To go to what Justice Kavanaugh said, that would be illegal in every other business. It doesn't happen. And it goes to, again, as I said earlier, the stigma surrounding it. When a Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame for LSU, he gets criticized. When Lincoln Riley leaves Oklahoma for USC, he gets criticized. Certainly locally, he gets ripped to shreds, but nationally, it happens. But if a player in the middle of the night just dares to skip a meaningless bowl game, you got a certain sector of the media and fans that rip him to shreds. I remember Christian McCaffrey did it. Folks crushed Christian McCaffrey. Oh, he's a bad teammate. He's not there for his squad. How could he possibly? Oh, I don't know. He wants to not blow out his knee and cost himself millions of dollars, which, by the way, because NIL was illegal, he couldn't do. A lot of athletes have that story. Jalen Smith. Remember Jalen Smith? He played at Notre Dame. Played in the Fiesta Bowl against the Ohio State University. Was a consensus top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, blows out his knee, is a second-round pick, and never reaches his potential. We have stories like that in college football. Is the idea that you are supposed, and listen, it's the beauty and the curse of college football. The beauty of college football is the fact that there is the pleasantry. There is the tradition, the bands, the rivalries, the energy in these stadiums. Again, I'm a Vols fan. When I tell you Neyland Stadium is, it's like a spiritual experience on Saturday afternoons and evenings. When that place gets rocking, man, forget about it. It's unbelievable. And the Pride of the Southland Band playing Rocky Top, 100,000+ singing in unison. It's beautiful. The tailgates, college game day, college football is awesome for all those reasons. But so many folks get blinded by the pleasantry, the logos, the schools, the history, all of this, and put that ahead of the actual athletes on the field. The fact that there are folks that do have the take, this kid quit on his team. What incentive does he have to quit on his team? The 3-0, he's playing really good football, and they're probably about to be in the top 25 with a chance, mind you, to maybe get in the college football playoff as that 12 seed. The idea that, he didn't care. He cared more about the money. No, he cared about not being lied to. He cared about being a part of an organization, of a program that has some level of honesty and decency. And so, listen, hats off to Matt Sluka. I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. Feel bad for the other guys at UNLV. Listen, there's another Ryan Flowers, again, Las Vegas UNLV season ticket holder, host of Clutch Sports Talk with the Grid. Check his show out on Sunday mornings. He texted me right before I went on the show and said that another player quit. Now, I don't know the details of that. I don't know if it's related to NIL. I don't know if he's doing that in protest to support his quarterback. I don't know what that situation is. What I do know is that locker room for the rest of the season is fractured. It is torn to shreds because evidently the higher-ups, be it the part of the UNLV program, we'll get more information as time goes on, and Pete Thamel on ESPN is, doing a great job, covering this, but it goes to how we do need regulations in NIL, but also, to me, the bigger story is the stigma that still surrounds the fact that it's still controversial in 2024, the year of our Lord, for college athletes who bring in millions of dollars for these athletic programs, for the facilities, all of these different things, make a lot of rich men and women richer, can't benefit, or the folks think they shouldn't benefit from their own name, image, and likeness. Go on social media. Now, listen, I get Twitter can be a cesspool for a lot of garbage, but that take exists out there. There's a sector of fans and media that are against this kid. And I think it is wrong. It is I would go so far as to say almost immoral. Frankly, it's anti-capitalist if we're going to be real about it. If we're going to go that route. Listen, God bless this kid, Matt Sluka. Kid better lawyer up, I'll tell you that. Or shouldn't say better. He's in the he's in the catbird seat to a certain degree. Listen, get your lawyers and get ready to roll. Because this story is only going to get bigger as time goes on. This kid got screwed over in a major way from a dishonest program, evidently so with UNLV. If this were a pro athlete, we'd go crazy. But Bryson, it's not a pro athlete. It really kind of is. This whole amateur athletes, that's nonsense. That's BS. That's absolute BS. This isn't high school sports. So shout out to this kid. Wish him the best moving forward. That is it for this week's edition of Carving Up the Context. Matt Sluka, get your money, young man. Get your money. Listen, I've talked about this. The first time I did, 2019, November 2019, two events happened almost simultaneously with James Wiseman at Memphis and a basketball player, and Chase Young, pass rusher at Ohio State. And both got in trouble because it's like the Jim Harbaugh thing. Like Jim Harbaugh years ago at Michigan, not the recent controversy at Michigan, but years ago, got in trouble because because essentially, point blank, he got a hamburger for a recruit. Like these are the rules. Some of these rules still exist today in the NCAA format. Again, it goes to show you we need a commissioner of college football. We don't need this one person at the top of the NCAA making every single decision for each and every one of these, different sports, especially college football being, the NFL's king of television. In election years, it's the election, but generally it's the NFL's king of television. College football is not terribly far behind. So I think absolutely unacceptable in this spot. By the way, and I'll move to Bryson's best 10 in just a second, but WNBA playoffs been going on right now. Vegas advanced, Liberty advanced, two teams that faced off in last year's finals. Caitlin Clark, though, Indiana Fever, facing a do-or-die, win-or-go-home game against the Connecticut Sun in Connecticut. The Sun are favored -6.5, and Caitlin has struggled. The Fever have struggled against Connecticut this year, but if they win tonight and that game tips off in about 30 minutes, They would get a game 3. It's the best of 3 series in the first round of the WNBA playoffs. They get a game 3 at home, because that's the way the format works. The team with the higher seed in the first round gets home court in the first 2 games. If it goes to game 3, the lower seed gets the home court in that situation. So it obviously incentivizes the higher seed to take care of business quickly, so you don't have to play an extra game on the road. But listen, man, Fever aren't going to win the WNBA championship. I'm still rolling with the Aces and the best player in the world in the women's game, Asia Wilson. Becky Hammond, great coach, all that Kelsey Plum. But listen, it's great for women's basketball. It's great for the WNBA if Caitlin advances. I'll say that much. So pulling for the Fever tonight for sure. And Mercury and Lynx are tonight as well. Could be Diana Taurasi's last game, potentially. So this could be a really, really big night in the WNBA. So definitely listen. There's no football. Baseball's on, obviously, the chase toward the finish. But if you got like a split screen, TV or whatever, I'm sure UTV has the option. Watch some baseball. Watch some WNBA playoffs. It's good stuff. I mean, Sabrina Ionescu had an unbelievable night for the New York Liberty. I think she actually broke the Liberty single game playoff scoring record. So shout out to her. I've been a Sabrina fan for years on Carving Up Live. The archive will say that. So just want to give a shout out to the WNBA. And again, could be Diana Taurasi's last game of her career potentially, and could be the last game of what was a legendary rookie season by the unanimous Rookie of the Year, Caitlin Clark. All right. So again, every Wednesday we do Carving Up the Context, but we also do Bryson's Best 10. So essentially, week 4 starts tomorrow. Cowboys, Giants, predict that after the next break. But go over the top 10 teams in the NFL entering the particular week. There's a lot of movement. There's some new teams in here. There's teams returning for the first time since week 1. There's teams that have skyrocketed, teams that have plummeted. Teams aren't even in the top 10. So without further ado, let's get this background music going. Bryson's Best 10 for here we go. We will start at number 10, the 10th best team in the National Football League, down a couple of spots from last week. It is the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So listen, Atlanta, the sky is not falling. Relax. The words of Aaron Rodgers, right? RELAX. So your first loss comes to a Pittsburgh Steelers team, sure at home, but that was kind of a road game for the Falcons. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, shout out to all of us out there who travel better than any franchise out there. But the institutional win of Pittsburgh, the not turning the ball over, playing great defense, that's the Mike Tomlin way. Kirk Cousins' first start, Raheem Morris's first game as head coach, it was going to be a little bit clunky. But you go on the road, you steal that game in Philadelphia, you feel good about yourselves, and you lose a very close game that you could easily won against the back-to-back champs. Listen, if not for a horrendously bad 4th down call in the final minutes of that game, good chance he probably would have won. You still got a loaded offense. Kyle Pitts is starting to show signs of what we thought he could be coming out of Florida. Drake London, we know he's capable of. Caught that game-winning touchdown a couple weeks ago. Bijan Robinson is special. Kirk Cousins, again, veteran quarterback, off an injury. It's going to take him a little bit more time, but he's starting to look more and more like himself. Had a great first couple of drives against a great Chiefs defense. Still believe in the Falcons. Still think they're the best team in the NFC South. Atlanta, the Falcons, the 10th best team in the National Football League. Despite being 1-2, folks, got to go by the eye test, not by the standings. At number 9, also with a losing record, down precipitously from 5 spots from last week's list. Nonetheless, still on the list. It is the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. Had they lose to the Los Angeles Rams, there's no George Kittle, no Deebo Samuels, no Christian McCaffrey. They lose Hargrave for the season, which is a devastating loss. There's injuries to Jarvis Ward and to Nick Bosa. Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw. We'll see if they're able to come back, obviously, and get themselves back into the fold of things sooner rather than later. Dealing with injuries across the board. Here's what we do know. Juwan Jennings, go Vols, have a day. 3 touchdowns and well over 150 receiving yards was unbelievable. And Brock Purdy, I've been waiting. When things aren't going your way, can you maintain that level of performance? They lost the game, Bryson. Wasn't because of Purdy. Purdy's the last reason they lost that game. That was special teams that cost the 49ers and to a certain degree defense. Okay, so I am not selling my stock on San Francisco. I'm not picking them to come out of the NFC or anything, and I still think the Rams are going to win that division. But listen, I needed to see that from Brock Purdy. I need to see it more and more moving forward to make sure this is a consistent trend and not just a blip. But the kid made some excellent throws. He was good moving in and out of the pocket. San Francisco's still really good. Once they get these guys back, assuming McCaffrey's Achilles tendonitis is okay in the long run, that's a big, knock on wood for him, big time situation with the 49ers. Still believe in them. They, the San Francisco 49ers, are the 9th best team in the National Football League. Making their debut on Bryson's Best 10, say it loud, say it proud, at number 8 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, my Steelers, are the 8th best team in the National Football League. And here is why, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you the simple fact that Justin Fields, top 5 in the NFL in terms of completion percentage. I can tell you this, folks, that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is second, if number serves me correctly, second against the run, 6th against the pass, 1st overall in terms of points per game given up. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pittsburgh Steelers, my Steelers, give up on average 8.7 points per game. And by the way, it's not like they've been facing the easiest schedule in the world. At Atlanta with a good offense. Going on the road, obviously, to Denver. You know, listen, Denver's still got a good home field advantage. That's Sean Payton and Bo Nix, who looks great in week 3, by the way. Pittsburgh shut them down. And then in week 3, facing an LA Chargers team that was playing really good football. Justin Herbert, yes, he was beat up, but he didn't get injured and knocked out of the game until the second half. Run the football effectively. Pittsburgh defense is all over that. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. We know that. Arthur Smith, the job that he's done with Justin Fields, dude's completing over 70% of his throws after barely struggling to complete 60% in Chicago. George Pickens doing his thing. Najee Harris, Calvin Austin with the game-breaking touchdown. Roman Wilson, I can't wait to see what this kid's able to do once he gets more and more opportunities. Listen, I thought it was a classic, barely get a winning season out of Mike Tomlin type of year. Dare I say, AFC North title may not be an unrealistic prospect for my Steelers, who are Cam shook there, the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, down a spot from last week, it is the Houston Texans. The Texans are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So I actually thought about keeping Houston at number 6 because of the fact that they lost to an unbelievable Vikings defense. I just said the Steelers got the best defense in the NFL. Minnesota's number 2. The Vikings giving up only like 10 points per game. But on the Texans side of things, the reason that they dropped a spot, and it's a little bit of a concern that I have through 3 games thus far, even though we're early in the season. They have not played a complete game yet. They're 2-1. They're first place in the AFC South. But in week 1, bad defensive performance against a quarterback in Anthony Richardson who can hit the home run ball and the deep ball, but in the intermediate routes, yikes, guy is bad, straight up bad in that regard. Bad defensive performance in week 1. Well below average offensive performance. Yeah, Chicago's got a really good defense, but still would have liked to see a lot more from CJ Stroud and that Texans offense. Not turn the ball over in the red zone in week 2. And then week 3, it was just they were outclassed by a Vikings team that was more ready to play than them, obviously, with the home field advantage at home in Minnesota. CJ Stroud's still a great quarterback. My only concern with this team, it's the reason that I wasn't quite love their organizational structure and their roster was not quite as high as everybody else was, is they're just a little bit too young. Historically speaking, you know, usually teams that go on to win Super Bowl, a lot of veterans, Texans just simply don't have that many veteran guys. You could say Stephon Diggs, we know his issues he had with Josh Allen. Listen, they got a great coach, they got a great quarterback, unbelievable roster of young guys. I just don't quite think they're ready yet to go on a deep playoff run. I still think they're probably in a situation to win the AFC South almost by default because the rest of the teams below them. Yikes. Texans. Houston Texans are the 7th best team in the National Football League. Making their debut on Bryson's Best 10 this season. At number 6, it is, welcome, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, from unranked to number 6, are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So Sam Darnold, leading the NFL in touchdown passes. Didn't see that coming. Goes to show you, again, props to Darnold. I loved his talent coming out of USC, but teaming up with Kevin O'Connell, doing the job that he's done. Darnold, who is a turnover machine with the Jets, with the Panthers. He's just straight up not turning the football over through the first 3 games of the season. Again, a Vikings defense giving up 10 points per game. Brian Flores, listen, it's 3 weeks in. Take a bow, sir. Okay, listen, Minnesota had a talented defense, but 2 years ago, this was defensively the worst pass defense in professional football. Last year, take a step up. This year, along with Pittsburgh, the 2 best units in the NFL on that side of the football, doing what they did to blow out San Francisco. The score is not indicative of how much they dominated that game. To blow out the Niners and then blow out a Houston Texans team, missing Jordan Addison, missing TJ Hawkinson, dealing with injuries to some of your guys defensively. I was very, 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 very impressed by what's with the Vikings. Do I think they're a contender? listen, Nick Foles once hoisted a trophy. I mean, we've seen crazier things, but I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. I mean, that's what history shows. I loved him out of USC. I wanted to believe him so bad for the longest time, but I sold stock. I'm buying back into Sam Darnold stock, at least with Kevin O'Connell. Vikings team's really good. 3-0, and they beat two really quality opponents in the last 2 weeks. Minnesota Vikings, the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, down 2 spots from last week, it's a team that I've been higher on the most, the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, listen. At the end of the day, the LA Chargers lost to a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is the best defense in football. Pittsburgh was at home for the first time in a long time. That was Pittsburgh's first home game since right before Christmas last year. Okay, so it's been a minute since we played at Acrisure Stadium doing what we did on that side of the ball. So, again, Justin Herbert, who, again, I said coming in this game, should not have played with that ankle injury. Save him for the Kansas City game. The line for that game, by the way, Chiefs on the road, -8.5. That tells you Justin Herbert's probably not going to play this week. Joe Alt got hurt in this game, and y'all know the thing about Joe Alt. The dude is as special a tackle as we've ever seen in the history of the NFL draft. Is unbelievable. Him and Rashawn Slater, best tackle duo, bar none, in the National Football League. I still like this Chargers defense, but they're going to be missing Derwin James this week against Kansas City. So if the Chargers somehow find a way to beat the Chiefs, they might be like number 1 next week. Who knows? I still love Jim Harbaugh. I still like their weapons a lot. Quentin Johnson looks playable. Unlike a year ago where he looked like a total bust. J.K. Dobbins is excellent. I'm not selling my stock in this Chargers team. I'm holding firm to my prediction that they will get to the AFC title game and lose to their arch rival Kansas City Chiefs. The LA Chargers are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, making Bryce's best 10 for the first time since week 1. My sister's going to love this one. The Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, listen, maybe some of this is just the bias, the fact that I was able to see this game in Nashville in person and see what Malik Willis, who a year ago, again, didn't look like he belonged on an NFL field, honest to God, with the Tennessee Titans. When Jordan Love goes down in that Philadelphia game, first of all, thank God, knock on wood for him, that it wasn't as serious as we initially thought. But number 2, my thought was, well, Green Bay is going to have to somehow find a way to cling to whatever they can and just survive the next few games with Malik Willis, the starting quarterback. Survive. They thrive. So Josh Jacobs ran the football all over the Colts in week 2. Well, Indianapolis can't really stop the run. So Green Bay, props to them winning that game at Lambeau. But on the road against the Titans team, albeit an 0-3 Titans team, quarterbacked by one of the worst QBs in the league, Will Levis, nonetheless, okay, that's a good Titans defense. That's Jeffrey Simmons. That's L'Jarius Sneed. They got some dudes on that side of the ball for Tennessee. And Malik Willis, unbelievable deep ball, great on 3rd down, moved very well in and out of the pocket. Green Bay didn't necessarily run the ball that effectively. Malik Willis led them in rushing, was efficient. Matt LaFleur, I was skeptical about him for years. Guy is freaking brilliant. Right now, Matt LaFleur is my coach of the year. The guy's done it. Kevin O'Connell's up there as well. LaFleur's done an insane job with a quarterback that looked genuinely, mechanically broken his first part of his career at the Tennessee Titans. Once Jordan Love gets back with those weapons, with a vastly improved defense, they got the coach, obviously, from Boston College to replace Joe Barry. Boy, look out for Green Bay. I didn't pick them to win the NFC North or anything. I picked Detroit to do that. Watch out for the Packers. I was blown away by what I saw from them last week in week 3. The Packers are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3 up, I believe a spot from last week, or a couple spots, last week's edition of Bryce's Best 10. At number 3, it is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Josh Allen's awesome. The Bills' run game is the best they've had with Josh Allen. The Bills' O-line is the best they've had with Josh Allen. The Bills' defense is excellent, and their weapons are better, much better than they get credit for. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid, as well as Dawson Knox as well. The only reason I've got them at number 3, 3-0 record, obviously, playing exceptional football. Not the crazy hardest schedule in the world. So Cardinals, frisky team. You take care of business at home. Week 2, I did by the Dolphins team for the jump, and Josh Allen, the Bills, own the Dolphins. Props to them. They get the W there. And then the other night against the Jaguars, I may love Trevor Lawrence. The Jacksonville is very good. Jacksonville is one of the worst defenses in professional football. Josh Allen carved them up, looked unbelievable. They're the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC. That said, it's a It's an overall body of work, not just this season, but what we know from you in seasons past. The typical 1-2 team, the 49ers, is not going to be at number 9 on this list in the top 10 if they had a losing record a season ago. They're just not, right? Your body of work does matter. The Bills' body of work say they always win the division. They're always a playoff team. They always start the season red hot. This is a different type of red hot, to be a sustainable red hot for the Buffalo Bills. Nonetheless, I've got them at number 3. The Bills, the third best team in the National Football League, because at number 2, still not moving a spot from where they've been at since week 1, it is the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the second best team in the National Football League. And before I tell you why, can I get a word, Dan Campbell?
Kneecap.
Oh, I know. I'm overrating the Detroit Lions. Whatever. Here's what I will tell you. I remember saying this all last season with the Kansas City Chiefs when I consistently kept having them in the top 5, and it is this. Okay? A Chiefs defense, which in years past, frankly, hadn't been very good, was dominating the first part of their schedule. And their offense just simply did not get it going. Mahomes wasn't playing great. Kelsey didn't look the best, and all this and all that. And my take was, okay, if Kansas City's biggest issue in the here and now is their offense, call me crazy, call me loony, I think they're going to get it fixed. I feel the same way about the Detroit Lions. Folks, Detroit giving up 20 to the Rams at home. Listen, 20 is nothing to go crazy about, but still 22. A Rams team that was the healthiest we've seen to this point with Sean McVay, all those guys. Indoor Stafford making his return to Detroit. Week 2. Oh, Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield went off. Yeah, he did go off, but he was bad on third down, and the Bucs went to the end of that game at the finish, right? That's because Detroit was playing great defense, and Nate Hutchinson was unblockable. And then against the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. lighting the world on fire, which they had the capability to do any given Sunday. 13 points. In Arizona, 13 points given up to a Cardinals team that had just previously scored 41. If offense is the issue in Detroit, Jared Goff, again, struggling against pressure, and they tried the trick plays, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporte is hurt, knock on wood for him. I made the bold prediction that he will be regarded as the best tight end in football at season's end. That looks somewhat, that doesn't look like that may necessarily happen, depending on how serious this injury is. They've still got a phenomenal offensive line. Goff is still good when you give him protection. Their weapons are good with Gibbs, with St. Brown, with Jameson Williams, David Montgomery. They got some dudes on that side of the ball. Ben Johnson's gotten off to a little bit of a rough start as their OC. He'll get things fixed. This Detroit defense is exceptional. It's better than I thought it'd be when I picked them to make the Super Bowl of the NFC. Aiden Hutchinson, Terry Arnold, they got some really, really excellent players on that side of the ball. If offense is Detroit's problem, call me nuts. They're going to get that fixed. The Lions are the second best team in the National Football League. And of course, staying where they've been since the start of the season. At number 1, it is the back-to-back world champion, Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. A lot of my argument that I made for Detroit kind of applies to Kansas City to a certain degree, right? But with a different little twist on it. Yes, Kansas City's defense is playing exceptional, which we kind of did expect that from them given what they did last year. When they were probably the second or third best defense in football a season ago. And their offense hasn't gotten it going. Patrick Mahomes, 19th. This is insane. 19th in the NFL in pass rating. Not great. Travis Kelce has been nothing short of invisible for Kansas City. Here's the good news. Rashee Rice, who legal situation pending. We'll see if he'll probably won't get suspended until next season. But Rashee Rice on the field has been unbelievable. Whether it's Kelce drawing the attention away from Rashee Rice, whatever it is, Reed, Mahomes, scheming, they've been great. Okay, this kid Carson Steele, the kid they ran the ball with against the Falcons, no Isaiah Pacheco, he looked pretty good. He looked really good. Kansas City's defense is excellent, and keep this in mind as well. Yes, Kansas City hasn't looked, as pretty, as sexy as we've wanted them to look on offense. Here's what we know. They beat the Baltimore Ravens at home. I think Baltimore's good? Yeah. Beat the Cincinnati Bengals at home. The Bengals been good against the Chiefs and have a great quarterback? Yeah. And then they beat the Atlanta Falcons on the road in Atlanta, what was literally dubbed by Adam Schefter the biggest game in a Mercedes-Benz Stadium history. And they beat a very talented Atlanta Falcons team on the road, led by their defense. Hardest schedule in the league through 3 weeks. Best quarterback in the world. Kansas City's overrated. Oh my goodness. I got one word for you from the partner of the second most famous, maybe at this point, the most famous Kansas City Chiefs. I just got one thing to say to y'all, okay? With the Chiefs being the best team in professional football, you need to calm down. That's all I'll say. All right, that is it for this week's edition of Bryce's Best 10. Let's go and pull up the list right here. My top 10 teams going into week 4, from 10 to 1, I got the Falcons, 49ers, Texans, my Steelers, Vikings, Chargers. That says Texans at 8. It actually should say Steelers at 8, Texans 7. My bad on that little snafu. But Chargers 5, Packers 4, Bills 3, Lions 2, Chiefs as the best team in pro football. I don't know what was up with that graphic there. The Steelers at 7. I had the Steelers at 8. Hey, you know what? Maybe I do in my heart of hearts have the Steelers at 7. But nonetheless, they're 8th on Bryson's best 10. All right. Be back in a moment. Final segment for predictions with the predictions for the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Be back in a minute on Carving It Up Live. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So before we get out of here, we got predictions for the Week 4 opener, Thursday Night Football, between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Football Giants. Let's go and get the background music back going right now. So, is it on? Okay, there we go. So the Cowboys, despite being 1-2, this is a matchup of 1-2 NFC East teams. The Dallas Cowboys in this matchup on the road in the Meadowlands are 6-point favorites against the Giants. The Giants coming off a solid win against the Cleveland Browns in week 3. That was my upset of the week, and I hit that dead on because at the end of the day, why in God's green earth would I ever bet on Deshaun Watson? Now you can make the same case for Daniel Jones, but you got to pick one or the other. You got to pick one or the other, and Daniel Jones has simply been playing better football than Deshaun at this point. Malik Neighbors, you seen this kid? Okay, it looks like he's just as good as advertised. Against a really good Browns defense. Neighbors in week 2 against the Browns was able to haul in 8 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. This kid reminds me to a certain degree of a DeAndre Hopkins and of a George Pickens. And what I mean by that is his catch radius is unbelievable. You throw the ball anywhere near where he's at in the field, and he's got a great chance of pulling that thing down. So kudos to Malik Neighbors. Kid is just as good as advertised. So Giants could easily be sitting in a position. Listen, I talked about Parnell earlier. They lose the game against the Commanders in week 2, okay, where they score 3 touchdowns. The Commanders score 0 touchdowns, and the Commanders win the game. Like that, I have never heard of that. I've heard of 2 touchdowns against 0 field goals losing. Never heard of 3 touchdowns against 0 field goals losing. That's what happened with the Giants. Again, they're at home in this matchup. Their last, the first one on the road, obviously coming at Cleveland, so they're looking for their first home win. For Dallas, well, they're only played another 1 road game this year, and they won it against Cleveland. Now, again, that's against Deshaun Watson, who's not very good. The Dallas and Dak passing game has been sporadic. It's been a little all over the place. Here's what I feel good about in this matchup, and really why I'm rolling the way that I'm rolling in this matchup, is the fact that CeeDee Lamb had one of the worst games I've ever seen him play last week against the Ravens. He had the forced fumble. The ball punched out of his hands when Dallas looked like they were about to score a touchdown early in the first half. And then he was, again, some drop passes, some miscommunication with Dak. He was getting pissed at Dak on the sideline. Dak appeared to publicly call him out after the game, saying that we've got to be more professional. CeeDee Lamb goes to the media yesterday and says, hey, I got to be better. I let my team down, really taking accountability for a bad performance on his part. So CeeDee, Dak, by the way, if you remember a year ago, CeeDee and Dak were not on the same page against the 49ers in that Week 5 debacle for the Cowboys. From that point on, CeeDee Lamb and Dak were the best quarterback-receiver tandem in the NFL. Dallas defense can't stop the run, but I don't really trust the Giants' run game. If they still had Saquon, I might feel a little bit differently. But the New York Giants looks like they may miss potentially both of their top 2 corners for this game. Against CeeDee Lamb, that is bad news across the board. But more than anything, in this game, to put a little carving it up spice on it, we can talk about the analytics and all the things going on with this Cowboys-Giants game. Here's what I do know, is that the last time that Dak Prescott, Dakota Prescott, lost to New York Giants, Barack Obama was president. Captain America Civil War was the #1 movie in the country. This was the TikTok logo, and it wasn't even called TikTok. It was called Musical.ly, okay? TikTok was Musical.ly the last time Dak lost to the Giants. Patrick Mahomes was still playing at Texas Tech. Kevin Durant was in his first season with my Golden State Warriors. This guy was, that. Cowboys win. Dak hasn't lost to the Giants since 2016. That ain't changed today. Cowboys win 26-17 against the New York Giants. They do cover the 6 points in this spot, and Dallas able to bounce back. Listen, this is a game where if Dallas loses, listen, people have commented on the show. Heads could potentially roll. McCarthy could lose his job. Who knows? Dallas has to win this game. Dallas will win this game because Dak is the father of the New York Giants. By the way, the last time Dak lost to the Giants, I was 13. So, and I did not have all this facial hair, I'll tell you that much. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Shout out to Parnell Saint-Preux for joining the show. Check out his podcast, the Sports PSP Podcast, every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Good friend of mine. Shout out to him. Appreciate him for coming on the show and taking time out of his day to join us. Appreciate you, the audience, for taking time out of your day to tune into today's show. Be sure to catch Carving It Up live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We are on the road. The next goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's what we're aiming to do. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to accomplish in Carving It Up's life. So if you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Hit that big red subscribe button down there and boom, you're part of the Carving It Up family. And if you have subscribed to the show, thank you so much. It means everything to me, to everybody who's been a part of this thing from day one. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about it, except for your sleeping cat. It has been because of the effects. I think there's a hurricane going on here in Tennessee. We're seeing like some of the effects of that. It has been pouring the rain where I'm at. And y'all know how cats are with rain. Nealon is not happy. He's not vibing with it whatsoever. So there you go. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, rather, as well as on any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown writing some great articles for the Grid Network's website. Check his stuff out. Wrote a great piece on Bryce Young recently. Check out the Grid's website and check out for sure all of our incredible content creators in the audio space, in the YouTube space, on social media, all over the place. The Grid, 8 o'clock spot return last night, folks. Get on the wave now because it's only getting bigger. Okay, it's only getting bigger. Get on while you can. Because you don't want to say you're a bandwagon. That's not true. We'll take anybody to be supporters of the Grid because we are coming. We are rising, and we are moving. All right. See you on Friday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us on a day-to-day basis in this country. And doesn't matter where you hear any sort of gaslighting. Oh, this isn't a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a gigantic problem that needs a number of nuanced solutions to solve it. And this being an election year, if any of the leaders that you could vote for or against shows any sort of nonchalant, no attitude towards trying to address this problem, either vote them out or vote against them, because we got to get this solved as soon as we can and addressed to protect and save the people of this great country. All right. I will see y'all on Friday. We're going to have Cowboys-Giants reaction. We're going to have the Vol View. We're going to have a lot of stuff. I advise you to tune in. We're going to have a good time. See you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. I'm wearing the Red Sox hat, by the way, because this may be the last show that I'm doing where we have a poll. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.